Hey, Dan.
What's up, Mike?
I've got something I want to share with you that I've been working on. It's called iLearn ABA. And I've been involved in this project for a couple of years now. We're trying to put out various products, but what we have right now available are 12 units, 12 CEUs that are available at a very affordable price. We need people's help out there to help us pilot our service. So I want to point everybody out to learn.ilearn-aba.com. That's learn.ilearn-aba.com is the website. And please use promo code ABA on tap to get 15% on 12 available units that are very reasonably priced. And please do lend your feedback here. Let us know how we're doing. So again, that's learn.ilearn-aba.com. Please do check it out.
Welcome to ABA on Tap, where our goal is to find the best recipe to brew the smoothest, coldest, and best tasting ABA around. I'm Dan Lowry with Mike Rubio, and join us on our journey as we look back into the ingredients to form the best concoction of ABA on tap. In this podcast, we will talk about the history of the ABA brew, how much to consume to achieve the optimum buzz while not getting too drunk, and the recommended pairings to bring to the table. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and always analyze responsibly.
All right. And welcome back to another installment of ABA on Tap. Very unique situation at podswap today with our good friends from the ABA business leaders and 3 Pi Squared. So, Mr. Dan, how you doing? I'll give you a good quick chance to say hello.
Doing great. Excited to have one of, if not our favorite guests online.
Absolutely. So we're talking about Stephen and April Smith. You guys, you probably couldn't hear that very well, if at all, but we do want you to circle back unless you've got suggestions now. We haven't named our house band yet. So at least one guest has submitted a name. Maybe you wait till we release this podcast. You can hear the little intro music and then circle back and give us a name. We haven't named them yet, so it's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, super special day. We're doing a pod swap with you all. We just spent an hour talking to you about a whole slew of things, primarily our first 6 months in operations here, which 3 Pi Squared and the ABA business leaders content has been instrumental in getting us started, so we couldn't be more grateful. But we ended with a cliffhanger.
Where can they find the first hour?
On Spotify, iTunes, anywhere you listen to podcasts, just look for ABA Business Leaders.
All right.
And we will definitely link that in the description as well. So if it seems like we're just jumping into some random stuff, check out the first hour on Spotify and check out April and Steven's podcast as well. Amazing podcast. We are very, very thankful for them to come on ours.
I did prepare myself a little bit this morning on my walk, and I listened. I believe it was your last episode on the ego and hiring processes. Super interesting stuff. Maybe we'll touch upon some of that because we've just embarked on hiring. But we left the other episode on your podcast with a cliffhanger here. 2 very important questions. Anybody want to recap those before we pass it over to Dan to answer those?
I mean, the big one for me is how did you go about getting from that particular funder that was requiring you to essentially commit fraud and minor fraud, maybe, and get those 4 hours when you absolutely deserve to be able to do 4 hours of assessment time in one day.
Yes. So the way that we did it is we fought it. And so I think one of the standards of practices for the 97151, a lot of the insurance standards come from the I had to look this up again, bring back my PTSD, from the Medicare MEU units. And they're specified there. Why do they come from there? I don't know. But that's kind of the standard. And Medicare offers 8 units a day of 97151, or that's what their recommendation or guidelines are. So there's another one, which is the Medicaid MEU units, which offers 32 potential units billed per day. And we asked this particular funding source because initially they came back. Honestly, we were just dealing with the billing side of things at first because that's who denied it. And we were like, why did we get denied? And they said, well, I think it was DQU8 or something was the denial on our billing form, whatever. We got denied, and they're like, you billed too many units. So as we talked about previously, we called a bunch of people, found out why. But then we asked, okay, so what is the maximum amount of units that we can bill? And they were like, we don't know. We're just billing. We'll talk to clinical. So we're like, all right. So I guess billing maybe reached out to clinical or something. And they got back to us and they were like, we actually don't have a maximum amount of units that you can bill in our policies. That I guess that would be the correct terminology. So that was interesting. So I guess this insurer, which is a pretty big funder, didn't have the maximum amounts. They were just kind of going on the Medicare. Let me make sure I got this correctly. Medicare MUE guidelines, but they actually didn't even have a policy. So my guess is nobody even fought it or asked because they didn't even have it in their policy. So at that point, it was, I don't want to say open season, but at that point it was like, well, what do we do from here? So I'll pass it to Mike. So that opened up our door, and I'll pass it to Mike with how we...
Hopefully one of the things that helped was our process, right? So going back and pointing out, look, we've developed a process that involves both direct and indirect for these 4-hour blocks. So we're telling you what we're doing with the client, and then immediately after that meeting with the client, what we're doing afterwards. So we're defining our entire process, and we've defined it in 3 blocks, which means 3 4-hour blocks to be able to utilize the hours that you have authorized to run this assessment. And again, I can't stress it enough, just the person who's manning this for us along with Dan, just very knowledgeable, very calm, very patient, able to sit with these people on the phone and describe these things ad nauseum. And I think that's part of the challenge is really sticking to it. You know, I guess choosing that you're going to fight the fight, hopefully, you know, not dying on the incorrect hill, but choosing that you're going to fight the fight. And then I really want to stand by the idea of you can explain your process and how that direct and indirect combination happens. I do think that helped us a little bit.
So what happened after that is we were scheduled for some tentative, I guess, peer-to-peer reviews with the higher up person on the clinical side of things from the insurance side, who, because there was no, I don't want to say no cap or whatever, because it was not officially capped in their policies at 8 units a day, then it was like, okay, well, let's talk about it clinically, what makes sense. And I remember talking with Mike and some of the other members of our team about, okay, how are we going to justify this? We sent our process over to them in email, and before we even had our peer-to-peer review, they were like, yeah, this process makes sense clinically, we'll approve it. So we never even had to have the peer-to-peer review, which I spent many a time figuring out exactly how I was going to argue with this person. And then it just got approved.
Nice.
And it was pretty succinct, our process, too. It wasn't like something lengthy or too elaborate. It's just really trying to capture, look, here's the direct part of the service for these 2 hours. We're going to take that information, immediately run back to our desk and do something with it. And then the second part of the process now maybe being a little bit more indirect with administering some of the other assessments or behavior scales, things that funding sources require. And then that last block saying, we're going to take what we've drafted. We're going to sit down with the family and the client again. We're going to review those goals, make sure that they're approved by everybody. And then we're going to run back to our desk and do those last 2 hours and finalizing the treatment plan, get everything ready to send back into you. So I do think that was helpful. And again, I can't stress it enough. I do love elaborate processes. I like writing things out, not necessarily for funding sources. So it wasn't like we spent a lot of time. We were just very succinct and very clear as to what was being done during that time.
And reasonable, too. Yeah. I think we really haven't, this might be a controversial take, but we haven't had many issues with insurances yet, with denying, because our roots come from a very unique capitated contract where
Initially, yeah.
theoretically we're actually fiscally incented to request less hours because we had an unlimited cap on the hours that we could request. It wasn't fee for service. But we've always been of the belief of less is more. And I guess our relationship with this insurance provider was new, so I don't know if they knew that by this point, so I can't say that we'd built up clout. But speaking to your second question was, how do you, justify goals and things like that? We really haven't had to run into that because we're requesting on the very low end of hours. So we have never had to justify more hours. We've never had insurance come and say, you're requesting too many hours. What we have had is insurances say, we think this client should be discharged by the end of the next reporting period. And this would actually be, I'd have to pass it to the other member of our team who has advised us to maybe put, I think it's stuff from the Vineland or some actual like discharge-based assessments. I don't know what they are. I wish I did know what they are, into our report, because according to him, he's like, insurances won't approve continuation of services unless you have some quantitative metric to show that you need those services, which is tricky in ABA because historically a lot of times we're like, well, we know this kid needs services, and they're like, prove it, and we're like, we know this kid needs services. So
yeah, I think that's another part of our process, and everybody does some version of this, but really getting into the nitty gritty of those results on something like a Vineland, and making sure that the goals we're writing are tied in not just to those zeros or those deficits, but that they're reflecting the things that are happening such that you can use those skills to address those zeros or those deficits. And then moreover, the analysis, the idea of looking at those ranges in your V-scores, which is what they seem to prefer to analyze with. And the idea that, a lot of our kiddos are going to be at a level of functioning that's going to be characterized as low, statistically speaking, and being, as realistic as we can in terms of the skills that are available, the need as defined by the parent on our FBA, and that analysis, and saying, how do these things all come together so that we can give the cleanest picture that we feel comfortable with without cutting ourselves short, and saying, yeah, this is, with this analysis, we don't want to discharge until we can get this low level to a moderately low, and we think we can. And they'll push back on that a little bit sometimes. But I've also made the case, again, which our other colleague is really good at arguing on my behalf, is to say, hey, you give me enough time, I'll change all those lows into something else. This is also about your impetus to make sure you manage your funding, which, again, we can argue about that, but I understand your objective. So I'm going to give you the cleanest, most quantifiable analysis that I can get on this behavior scale and on this functional behavior analysis, and then give you goals that all fit into that rubric, if you will. So again, I think people do this by and large, but maybe we've gotten into the nitty gritty of those scores a little bit more, so we can speak their language while still allowing ourselves to do it the way we want to do it.
Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, hopefully.
And one thing to note, I don't know if I told you this or not when we were going back and forth on the hours. If you do know, like if you have an issue with the funder and you don't feel like they're treating the codes as they are designed, I highly recommend reaching out to the ABA Coding Coalition. Oh. It's abacodes.org. Just use their contact us form. I think it's CASP and Autism Speaks that run this thing, and they are supposed to reach out to that funder and give them some education on how the codes are supposed to work. So that may be another resource if anybody's listening to this and saying, I'm struggling with this too. I would highly recommend it. They're great to work with, I've heard, so I would highly recommend reaching out to them.
Yeah, that's a great resource. Thank you for sharing that.
So just kind of bringing everyone up to speed. Obviously, hopefully most of our listeners heard our first podcast episode with Stephen and April, and just a little bit of introduction that we talked about on their podcast. Not going to give too many spoilers, but they have created a ABA Business Leaders platform that essentially allowed us to incorporate and create our own company and be here to where we are today. We talked more about it on their podcast. So if you're listening here, definitely make sure you check out their podcast.
ABA Business Leaders.
ABA Business Leaders is just an amazing platform. I do have a question for you all, but I guess before that, were there any other things on that note before I kind of make a U-turn?
No, I think that was super helpful. And as always, as part of collaborating and connecting with other business owners and business leaders, it's so great to be able to hear from each other. I think that adds another layer of support. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing.
We hope this, catches fire and other people start doing this, because I think it's really liberating. It was super liberating for me clinically and otherwise to say, oh, wow, we, little notch on our belt. We got this one, and now we can do things the way we envisioned, from the beginning, and we can feel ethical and like we're putting forth our best practice, and like the consumer's getting the better deal. All of it. So.
And thank you for asking me to share it, because I never even thought about that. I was just so happy that we got it. But that goes back to what we talked about earlier, that this field is so siloed. It seems like companies just want that you can't share insurance rates. God forbid anybody know insurance rates, or God forbid anybody know any of the secrets that we have, because
I would never.
Then the other company's going to come in and steal your own clients. And I really appreciate, and I expressed earlier, the forum that you all have created that allows us, because there's strength in numbers, there's powers in numbers. If every single ABA company tomorrow was like, no, we're not going to do our services unless you give us a 25% higher rate, they would have no choice but to do that. But obviously, every ABA company is not going to collaborate. And in the interim, while the ones that are holding out are waiting, some people are going to scoop in there. But correct me if I'm wrong, was that actually a vision of either of yours, was to create kind of a strength in numbers for the overall betterment of the field?
I mean, I know when I started 3Pi Squared, this was one of the things that really frustrated me about the ABA company that we had. We did not accept Medicaid just because we had enough clients through the private funders we had, and we just didn't want... I dealt with enough insurance. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that. So we did a lot of transferring of services. So once the child got a Medicaid waiver, they would go to this other ABA company, and the lack of collaboration, they wouldn't even look at our plan. They wouldn't want to talk to us. They wouldn't want to deal with us. They wouldn't have a meeting. There wasn't going to be any overlaps. It was just like, no, they stop now and we take over. And so we would get the fallout from that, because the parents would be calling us up and say, why are they doing it this way? I don't know what to, and they wouldn't even give us a meeting. And so that was something that just frustrated me.
And these were providers in our own community.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, they're the most worried that you're going to steal their clients, though, right?
Yes.
Right.
And that's the thing,
but
right?
they're not my clients for you to even steal from me. Yeah. They're their own person.
Yeah, and that was kind of where when I started 3Pi Squared, that was like, these are human beings. They do not belong to you, right? This is not yours. Like, this is a human being, and this is a family that needs help. And so even within our own company, a huge issue that a lot of new BCBA owners have is that they don't have access to their CAQH. They don't even know they have a CAQH.
Oh, man.
Right? And so then they find out, oh, the company's got it. Well, I didn't even know this is a thing. Okay, I'm going to get it. And then I've had people that were immediately terminated when they asked for their CAQH. Like, this isn't how we should act.
By the way, any BCBA listening, whether you ever want to, it's not even about starting your own business. You should have autonomy over your CAQH. Your CAQH is yours. I don't know if you want to say what that even is.
I don't even know what the acronym stands for anymore, but it's just it's your information. Essentially, it's kind of like your social security number.
It's like your identifier within
insurance.
Credentialing with insurance.
And so that was something that just really bothered me. And with our own employees, I would say don't even use your company email address with your CAQH.
Right.
Put your Gmail, put it on your
Right.
Gmail or whatever. Because even if, let's say, for whatever reason you quit, you're not happy here, or you leave, I don't even want it tied to that. Like, this is going to be an issue. You're going to have to change it. So don't even do that. Just put it to your own personal, because it's your personal information. You take care of it. We'll help you if you need it. But this is yours. It's not mine. And so this is kind of my attitude is I want BCBAs to be treated like how I would want to be treated, not as a human person, right? And we're working with one company in Colorado, and he said, like, this doesn't sound like really difficult things that you're asking me to do here. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it's a low bar, right? Just treat people like they're actual humans, and stop taking advantage of them, right? Pay them for their drive time, pay them for required trainings. Don't have RBTs as contractors. But we still see it to this day, that companies are just taking advantage of passionate, well-meaning people. And so that's kind of where I went at it. I just wanted to help people do what they wanted to do, which is help kids. And it like, there's just so much abuse, in like, not even an ABA, but like, you're working with children with special needs. There's a lot of abuse going on. They maybe they don't have the words to report it. And so I'm very passionate about that, right? Like, I don't want, like, these kids need our help. They don't need our abuse. So we have to train our staff appropriately, and we have to give them the support that they need. And I've seen enough amazing ABA companies out there doing it right every day. And so for me, it's really important to say, hey, I've seen this right. I've seen this done right, done ethically and sustainably, and you can make a profit. You can actually pay your mortgage on this, right? This is doable.
I hope so.
And so you're really right. And so that's really what I'm trying to promote, is that this can be done the right way, and I see it every day. So
it's our experience thus far. We're not quite yet where we want to be. We're about halfway there, I'd say. But I think you're right. Just to circle back on the CAQH piece really quickly, because we found out more about that in starting up Ascend than I ever wanted to know. And I think that companies have a good intent to start, which is, you're going to forget to reattest.
Exactly.
So we're going to take this on for you.
Yep.
And then what people don't realize is so it's as simple as your password, right? So if you want to share your password with an administrator and let them reattest, okay, I think that's okay. But then you have to know that if that company has a policy that says you can't work anywhere else, and you think you're going to get away with it, they're going to find out because of your CAQH. So there's a lot of good reasons, starting with your own privacy, to manage your own number. And then there is a reason, I think, a reasonable premise to say, I'll share my password with you as an administrator for a company I'm working with. And then I would advise people, have a clear conversation about how that password is going to be used, and understand what the policies are, so that if you are violating a term of employment, just know that they're going to know once you sign up another location of service, they're going to find out, and they're going to talk to you about it. And that's, without getting into that story, that's kind of how we came about it. And, getting, I guess, in a sense, accused of taking some employee who had otherwise left their position to come with us. And then somebody said, hey, you're poaching. And it's like, no, wait. Number one, they can go wherever they want. Number two, they had actually resigned before they came over here, but it was because of that CAQH piece that, again, you're giving out a lot of your information if you're not taking a hold of that password yourself.
And even like new, you just pass your test, you become a BCBA. I know the inclination of this company is, we have to get this person credentialed as quickly as humanly possible. Right. So they even make it for them, right? I've worked with many BCBAs that didn't even know what are you talking about? I've never heard of this in my entire life. And so the company has made it for them. They've attested every single time. They have no idea. They upload their professional liability insurance. They take care of everything. But that's the other issue that I've heard about, is that they give the control to the company to upload their professional liability insurance. What happens if the company's professional liability insurance lapses?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now you don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so now you have no coverage. And
Well,
you
I
don't have
mean
your
that,
own.
and you should also always have your own as well. But
So
ideally,
and so now you're working without professional liability insurance and you don't even know it. So there's just a lot of risk, and it's yours. And it's like, again, it's yours.
It's tied
so
to your
why?
name. Yep.
Yeah.
It's by the way, I just Googled it. It's the Council for no, I lost it. It is the CAQH is the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare. That's what it stands for. But that was probably the number one delay in our situation may have been a little unique, but I imagine there are other BCBAs that go on the business leader platform that want to start their own venture. They want to do it concurrently while working, not just cut cold turkey, concurrently while working. And that was our biggest thing, because it's like, well, as soon as to credential with any new insurances, we have to give them our CAQH. Our current employer is going to find out. I want to be very clear, too. We were not going to take any patients from our current employer. I do not advocate for that. That's certainly an ethical issue. And transparency is obviously a good thing. It may be in the beginning, you're just trying to put some feelers out there and see what's available. And then your employer finds out. And there's really only one reason that you would want to request your CAQH, and they're not going to be stupid about it. And now maybe you're going to have to quit cold turkey, not any decision of your own. So that was interesting. And that came directly from a 3Pi Squared business leaders, like literally in the first platform or module. It was literally the one that I talked about earlier, that there's 5 of us on this business venture, that I watched this module and called everybody. And I was like, next week, I know we're all doing this on our own pace. Next week, we are all meeting on Zoom, and I'm watching this again with all of you, because it was like a 45-minute long video. Is going to be the most important video that y'all are probably going to watch if you want to be on this business venture.
Yeah, and so like anyone listening, like I asked this of everybody. Okay, so maybe you were treated that way. Maybe they made your CAQH, and then you like you said, there's only 2 reasons after 5 years of not even knowing this thing existed that you would need it. Is you're either starting a company or you're quitting, right? Like those are the 2. So like, don't do this to your staff. Please tell them that you're creating this thing. If you're creating it, please give them access.
Educate them.
Yes, please. It's just like, don't do what you left, right? Like, don't, like, same with pay people for required training. Please pay them, right? Pay per, like, I hear this often. I didn't get paid for drive time. What would I pay anybody else, right? Like, and I get
know your state regulations. Yes.
Please pay your staff for what they deserve, right? What you are legally required to provide them. So those are just, some simple things that that's really what we're going for here, right? Is just to try and help.
It encourages that transparency. We've kicked that word around, but I think on both ends, the idea that yes, we would prefer having control of your CAQH because it's easier for us to ensure your reattest. But come to me anytime, and here's your password if you want to do it. And moreover, we do have a policy that you can't work for somebody else, or I'm not sure why those policies exist. I'm not going to get into that. But for whatever reason, that as the owner of that CAQH number, just being fully aware that all that information is being transmitted, and somebody else has access to it, and that this is your credentialing information as a clinician. So I think just really encourages transparency from everybody. We were in a good situation. We found this out, and it really encouraged me to say, okay, well, I have every right to start this business venture without telling anybody. But if we're going to do this correctly and move forward, I'm going to have to start reporting to this agency. They're going to find out. Just put it all on the table. So again, I think it really encourages transparency on both ends. And I agree. There's no reason why, if you have a good clinician and they're asking for their CAQH, it shouldn't be their automatic letter of resignation. Go find out why they're leaving. If they're really that good, take the time to figure out why they're looking somewhere else and see if you can't salvage it.
Yep, absolutely.
So I have a question for you based on something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. So you're talking about Medicare and Medicaid, and that you wouldn't take Medicaid funders because of the funding. And we've gotten that a lot. In California, it's specifically called Medi-Cal. And that's my question, is that we wanted to at least inquire about it. And in California, it's run kind of differently, so you don't apply. Maybe you do. I don't know. It kind of got lost. So there's Medi-Cal, but it's managed by Medi-Cal networks. So it's like, Blue Cross Promise or Molina or Community Health Net. So there's specific providers. But all of them to a T said they had no need in their network. And they would reach out to us if in the future they did, which seems really interesting because since then I've had multiple Medi-Cal patients reach out to me and say, nobody takes Medi-Cal. Do you guys take us? And I'm like, no, they said they didn't have need in their network, so we're not credentialed with Medi-Cal. Is that anything that you all are seeing on the Medi-Cal or Medicaid streets?
That doesn't just happen with Medicaid or Medi-Cal.
No, it's
that happens across the board,
Yeah,
even
there's
with
a
commercial
huge-
insurances.
huge big scandal with Optum.
I heard about that.
Yeah. So like it's on our website. We did 2 news.
Oh yeah, we started news every Monday
Oh,
morning.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Check that out.
Those are fun, right? To talk about it, but I think that we're seeing this a lot more. Like I think that there's going to be one thing that should be on your radar, at least just talking about you all, is accreditation. I think that this is just it's a matter of time. I don't know if it's 6 months or if it's a year away, but we're seeing Mass Health right now is starting to require accreditation, I think in 2027 from ABA providers. And I think that there's just such a huge so Indiana in 2019, I think they were paying $56 million in Medicaid for ABA. It's now at $630 million.
Wow.
So $630 billion.
I can't remember. You'll have
Let me
to pull
look
it up.
So
Man.
like it is a huge,
huge
I just know it jumped in.
That's huge.
Yeah.
and so now what we're seeing in multiple states is people are they're putting they're putting things on hold. They're bringing in panels to see what's going on. They're looking at fraud. I think the federal government also said in Indiana that there was a huge amount of fraud going on in ABA. So I think that what is happening in a lot of situations, because we're seeing this across the country. Florida. Brim in Florida there for a while. I think they've opened it back up.
Yeah, but there are people still bottlenecked and really struggling getting paid.
But yeah, so this I think we're seeing across the board is that people are now realizing the amount of funds that it costs to do this, and they're starting to delay as much as they possibly can. So now to get around that, you like this is something very similar to rate negotiation. Just email them like every week. Say, hey, I'm still here. This is why I'm. Oh, was that at the top?
Yeah. So back to the Indiana, it went from You
see it?
No, you got to go down.
Okay.
I did just see it.
So it went 14 million in 2017 to 639 million in 2023.
Oh wow!
So it was a huge amount. So we're and we've seen this in multiple states, right? And so they're just saying, whoa, we can't afford this. We're stopping, right? And so, so something that you can do, though, is like I said, very similar to rate negotiation, is just say how amazing you are. So, I speak multiple languages, or we have these specialized degrees, we have these special skills. Whatever it is, we do this very particular social skills, or we can take care of this very particular deficit, whatever it is that sets you apart. It very similar to if somebody calls you up and says, hey, why should I go with you versus somebody down the street? How do you start that conversation? That's how you should be telling Medi-Cal, hey, we're different. This is why we're different. And again, over and over and over again. We did this in New York, same issue. And eventually they said, okay, fine, right, we'll let you in. So,
well, even before this, though, like years ago, I would say 5 or 6 years ago, because we were still deep in our business, we would have we would try to get into network with a particular provider and they would say our network's closed. Meanwhile, we know for a fact that kids are on like years long waiting lists. And so, you know, and we're like, okay, well, so, cause we had, I can't remember what payer, I don't know that it matters, but we had single case agreements with numerous clients just because the rates were so bad if we went in network, to be completely honest. We're like, the only way that we can afford to do this is single case agreements. And so then at some point, and this is the challenge to single case agreements, is that they can end at any time, essentially. And so they did, and they said that we could only continue these cases if we went in network. And you know, we had a significant amount of cases. However, that wasn't even the biggest issue. It was that we knew that these clients were not going to have continuity of care, and they were going to leave us, and then they're going to be sitting on a waiting list for who knows how long. And so we really fought it, but we ended up having to go and network with them to be able to do what was best for the clients. And so that's one of those decisions that sometimes it's a difficult decision to make, but at that time, that's what we chose.
Yeah, we did another article too on Nebraska, same thing. So their ABA services went up 1,200%, and they are now saying there's a whole bunch of fraud going on, and so they're kind of, you know, going through to see how they can stop this.
Well, I know that we're not I say I know. Maybe we want to go into this conversation. I don't know, but you know, it's not just fraud, but it's also like number of hours, right? Is every kid like across the like? Are we just asking for 40 hours a kid for every kid, whether we're using them all in the best way? I don't know. And then of course there's all the fraud, right?
I wonder if, I mean, thinking about a place like Nebraska having some remote areas, I wonder if the advent of telehealth changed the number of hours being delivered, and that could make the difference. And I think that's what I would want to get into is whether we're talking about efficiency or otherwise, it's always the cost of something that alarms us, right? So, well, clearly if it went from 17 to 250 million, there's got to be fraud. Okay, maybe. And then maybe somehow the services opened up, so you actually have people with the ability to receive services because they're being delivered. I hope that's the case, much less fraud.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that covered COVID times. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, of course, clearly that would have been the advent. I think a lot of us wised up to the advent of telehealth. It was always available to us in the past before COVID. We never used it, and then COVID kind of made it a thing. We had to develop procedures and protocols and get good at doing it. And that might, hopefully that speaks to a lot of that increase and a lot less fraud is happening. Again, that's what we would hope for.
And you mentioned, April, between the fraud and just the clinical practices. I mean, that, again, my hot take, I'm not saying insurances are easy to deal with. I've had many 8-hour phone calls that leave me, I'm not even mad at the end. I'm just so confused on I'm like, what do I still live in a house? Am I still in Sandy? What's going on? That clinically, and this is my experience, they have not been completely unreasonable with what they've approved. They've approved things within reason when they've had questions. They've requested peer-to-peer. And we talked about that earlier on your podcast earlier today, that sometimes clinicians are scared of peer-to-peer. And I am sure I know in the past that there have been peer-to-peer with like gastroenterologists and people that just have no understanding of ABA. I get it. But on the flip side, you should be able to justify why you're requesting these hours. And I think that insurances have, some culpability here, but I also think that a lot of ABA companies have tried to circumvent it, and with ways that it might not necessarily be ethical, and now are being called to roost, for lack of a better term, and they can't really complain, or they can't really explain why they're doing it, and now they're complaining and putting it on insurances, and that's a dangerous game, because like when you said, when they're now looking at why they're paying for this much services, if we can't justify it, then the whole service runs risk of getting nixed.
Yeah. I like your point. Yes, insurances have a certain reputation. It's certainly challenging to work with at times, to say the least. And then that means that we have to ensure on our end that we're being the most logical, most forthcoming, most reasonable as well. Because if we're not playing on a level field, and how can we expect them to get any better? And again, it's already a very complicated circumstance that they're putting forth, and in funding services like ours. So, just again, to everybody out there, I know we mean well and we have good intent, and then actually carrying forth with that good intent all the time, I think is imperative. Otherwise, it just gets more challenging to work with these funding sources.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think that this is a huge problem in this space, and I think you could see this, and it's not just ABA, right? Like this is just something that goes on. I do agree with you that if I was a funder, I would probably also be pushing back as well, right? And I think that to a certain degree, they have every right to push back, and I totally agree that you should be able to justify the hours that you're asking for. But at the same time, I don't know if I know that I cannot say that I feel like most funders are coming from a good place, right? Like I feel like that they're looking at their bottom line.
Not for sure.
I don't know that there's no judgment there. I mean, I guess like in the big picture, right? But most of the people are doing their job. They're just following what they're asked to do. And there is like, yes or no, are we spending the money here? Are we not spending the money here?
Yeah.
And if they're not getting the understanding of their justification of why, I'm just devil's advocate.
Yeah, I don't know that a funder is like this, wonderful thing, and they're all
They do fund services.
All of their intentions are just and amazing. That's not been my experience, I'll tell you that. But I also do see that there is a lot like. Hopefully that that 56 million in fraud, maybe there was some miscommunication or misunderstanding. Maybe the government doesn't really understand what ABA is, and maybe that's hopefully a lot of it. But I think we can all agree that there is some fraud going on there. There is some unethical services being provided. Like I know I've heard from some people that tax that they feel like it's daycare. They're not really providing, like they haven't seen their supervisor in months. I've heard from one tech recently, they didn't even know their supervisor's name. So like, how are you providing?
They weren't a new hire either.
They weren't a new hire. So like these things are definitely happening. So the thing that we're doing, we're ruining it for ourselves, right? If we don't get ahead of this and start providing those high quality ethical services, this is why accreditation is almost a certainty at this point. This forced accreditation, and it's when you're going to force. Like I love the idea of accreditation. I think a third party independent auditor is a great idea. I think that they'll look at they'll come in, will look at your stuff. And there may be blind spots in your processes that you don't even know about. Obviously, they're blind spots. And so they can come in and say, hey, what about this? You're missing this. That's great. But if you're forcing people to do it, I don't know if that is going to give you the results that you're looking for. And if everybody now just knows that this is how you play the game, I give you the $3,000 or the $5,000 or whatever, and I get this stamp, and now I can bill insurance. Like the big guys can pay for that. There's not going to be an issue, but these smaller these smaller providers, this is now a tax. It's a tax to play. I feel very conflicted with this, and the fact that there's only two major accreditation boards right now. I'm a little concerned that this what's going to happen. So I don't know, but we did it to ourselves, right? Like we did not have the processes. I was reading a paper, I don't know, last week, where there's a lot of guesswork in the amount of hours that are being requested, and it goes back to what you're saying. Like if you can't justify those hours. If you don't have a rationale, why are you asking for those hours, right? So,
unfortunately,
research says 20 hours a week. I'm kidding.
I was going to say, unfortunately, some providers out here don't even have guesswork. You have to commit to a minimum 25 hours before they'll even take you. It's like, is that even ethical?
Well, and again, it's going to get justified, but there's empirical validation for that. Now, is there empirical validation for each and every client they're bringing through their door would be the next question. Something that you were both talking about and sort of looking at the nature of insurance companies. I'm certainly not kind to funding sources and all the pressure, the guidelines they put on us. But I think that you made a really good statement there, Stephen, and kind of saying, look, these people they're not going to call you to give you more hours or to offer you an increase in your rates. They're going to call you to question what you're doing. That's what they do. Whether that's good or bad, I'm not going to call it either. Yes, it's annoying, and it certainly annoys me as a clinician. But I think that that's really important to just accept. This is what they do. They are funding sources. And if they think you took too much, they're going to want it back. And in fact, they're going to err on the side that you took too much. That is their premise to begin with. So to your greater point there, we have to be ready.
Heard of a reverse recoupment
No,
audit.
no, never. Oh, we owe
you
you money. No, they're never going to do that unless you ask them for it, right? Or you go through some appeals process. So again, whether that makes them good or bad, I won't comment on that. As much as you're absolutely right, we're going to keep doing it to ourselves if we're not ready to justify it with a true to life, analysis of this is why we're requesting this for this particular patient. And I can imagine being on the insurance side and saying, wow, every client that walks in through your door requires 25 hours.
For 8 years.
That at some point as a funding source, you're going to look at that and go, hey, wait a minute. No, this is the same thing over and over. We're not making any progress. We're not moving in any direction. Now this is going to, be checked as fraudulence. And now we're going to generalize that to a bunch of other providers, because if they're doing it, I bet somebody else is doing it too. So again, not saying that any of those things are true by and large or that can be overgeneralized, but I like the absolute value of the insurance provider, and that phone call is going to be to try to question and get something back from you. We got to accept that.
Remember that.
Too,
this is recorded. Next time I bring up something about insurances and you fly off the handle, I'm playing that.
Okay.
Go ahead, April. Sorry.
I love it. That's funny. Well, I was just gonna say, that's where the discharge plan comes in, right? Like, okay, well, how long are you guys gonna do this?
Right.
When's the end?
Yep.
I really feel comfortable with how we've developed that, and there'll be much more development. Again, looking at sort of our balance between our clinical and our administrative acumen is really looking at those reports and saying, yes, not only does that paperwork have to go in to continue services, but it has to make sense to them. It has to make sense to us and how things get carried out. And to our prior conversation, a lot of times it can become this plug and play. Just get it done. Whatever they want to do, just say it. And then now you've got this document that is static. It's not true to life. You're not really doing what the document says. And I think once you separate your practice from what's actually on paper, you're going to run a risk of not doing what you said you were going to do.
And the discharge criterion is kind of interesting too, because like we talked about on our episode, the medical versus social model, a lot of times discharge criterion is based on, if it's from the medical model, of are you cured from whatever this is? And that's not typically a thing with autism. With ABA, we don't cure you. So then is it like, well, are you stabilized? What does that mean? What are our goals? And I remember with our previous, the companies that bought one of our previous companies out, it's a large private equity mental health provider, and they worked with Cigna. And at that time, Cigna was actually trying to come up with the metrics of successful ABA care. They didn't have it. The company we worked for, actually, unfortunately, we didn't work there long enough to really get this started. But Cigna was coming to them like, can you all just tell us what successful ABA looks like, so then we can extrapolate this out? And there's such variability in that. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, there was just one point, and then you can answer that, because
standards of practice then. Yeah.
But one of the things that you mentioned was like that agency that, it's weird. Every kid has 25 plus hours, and it goes back to those unwritten rules, very similar to the insurance company that you were fighting with. Well, we give 2 hours. What else are we supposed to do, right? And there's no rule written down. But when you go into that agency and you see every kid that comes here has 25 plus hours, there is, even if it's not written down, there's gonna be that, oh wait, I'm asking for 18. Is this gonna work out? Are they even gonna accept this, right? And so you're like, okay, fine. I'll just do the 25 because then we'll be able to get services. And you're kind of, yeah, maybe they don't need those extra 7, but it's better than none. And so like, are we doing that as well? And so there's a lot going on here. And like you said, if there's a lot of guesswork involved, you can't really justify why you're asking for 18, then I guess 25. What difference does it make? So there's that piece going on there as well, you know?
Well, and that's got to, I mean, in all fairness, well, let's see, fairness, is that the best way to put it? I understand the logic from now a bookkeeping perspective, right? If everybody gets 25 hours and you're delivering a good percentage of those, that's got to be much easier to run your books and to get your profit margins. You can predict those very
to fit
easily,
time frames
right?
as well.
And then again, or block scheduling, all those things. Yeah, it's going to be very nice if you can predict exactly how much every client's going to have. I get that. And then we have to go back to the idea of standards of practice. Is that really what we're doing here? So I don't want to be overly critical of a system like that. Everybody can do their own thing, and there's a lot of unwritten rules that we still have to sort through, or to now rules to write down and create. But again, I do want to say I understand the logic of coming up with that rubric, and then I have to ask the question: is that really what we do here?
Yeah, totally. I agree with that too. I don't know. Does it boil down to training?
I think we've talked about that.
Do we really know? Maybe a lot of BCBA's, I don't want to say ability, but functioning level, but I don't know if that's the right word. Anyways, their ability to like do the things that we need them to do, that maybe they've never been trained on how to do that. And maybe we expect that they got that from their supervisor, but we don't know who their supervisor was. And, kind of like there's been some talk in our field of micro credentialing and things like that. And, how can we increase, how can we ensure better training? And, I don't know. It's been a lot of years since I've been through school, but is that taught in school, or is that something that we learn on the job? And are we teaching that to our staff? Or are we just expecting or assuming that they know how to do it?
I think a lot of it is just plug and play, right? So let me go back to the hypothetical situation. You're a young BCBA. You just passed your exam. You walk into some clinic. It's got a great clinic model where these kids are spending 5 hours a day there every day, and you get to work as part of a group setting with people supervising you. And because of the revenue being brought in with that model, you get a really good paycheck. And I think you're right. I think that it would take a lot of knowledge and training to go, oh, wait a minute. Why does every kid get 5 hours a day? And it does, training, education. I think it does go back to those questions. And then still the idea that, but wait, you're going to pay me how much a year? Oh, okay, maybe that eases the mind in terms of why these kids are getting the level of service they're getting, and it could be very attractive to have colleagues around, to work in a group setting. To your point, to feel like you're getting more training because you've got more experienced BCBAs around. You've got your staff. Your staff isn't driving out, which is less stress on them. So I see where it all works out really beautifully too. And then, we have to ask the same question again: are we sure that every child here requires 25 hours a week, even though the model looks so cool? So I think you bring up a good point. Ongoing training is one thing. Ongoing professional development that asks these questions back to the why. That's been our theme for both discussions today on both platforms. Is why are we doing this? Why do we do this? We ask that all the time. Just because this is the way we've always done it, that's the best reason to change it. That's the best reason to revisit it. Oh, well, you don't know why? Just because this is the way we've always done it? Okay, let's go back and change it.
Oh, yeah. So that should be your policy, your procedure now. Like if you ask yourself why and you say, because that's how we've always done it, then immediately change it. Immediately.
Right now. Scrap that.
Action.
Do the opposite. Do the opposite.
Do the opposite.
I had a question.
Yeah,
go ahead, Steven.
Oh, go ahead.
No, good.
I was just going to say, just to kind of layer another thing on top of this that is coming, right? It's already here, is AI.
Oh, goodness.
And this is my biggest concern about AI, is that if we don't have the knowledge in the field generally to make these clinical decisions, and we're seeing a lot of this. Well, 25, I guess that's fine. Then if AI starts making those decisions for us, what does that do, right? And I'm really concerned about this because AI, it knows everything. Don't worry about it. It's great. My concern is if there's a biller attached to that AI system, and now the incentive, I don't know, like if the billing system says, look, if we add 10% more billables to every clinic that we work with, well, that's great. We make more revenue. That's awesome. Yeah. So now the AI system in the back and is like, okay, well, let's just we'll recommend it. Now maybe not everybody's going to agree to this new recommend 10% increase, but a lot will. And then just ease of use. Hey, it's been right for the last 5 years. I might as well continue using it.
Right.
So like there's a concern there for me about AI and how that's going to disrupt this field. Right.
Standards of practice, yeah. I have a question for you on something different that you mentioned earlier. Did you want to say something on the AI? So you talked about an example of a client that you worked with or a consultant that had multiple funding sources, and one funding source, I think you called it Funder A, wasn't particularly great, and they had Funder B, which was kind of keeping them afloat. What would be your thoughts? So in the beginning, when we were starting out, I think we were like gung ho of we're gonna get like the best rates and only rates that are really good. A couple funding sources negotiated with us, and a couple of them were like take it or leave it. And I think in an ideal world, you would be like, okay, we'll leave it, but you might not have enough clientele with the funding sources that are great payers to facilitate your whole business practice. So the question is then, do you take the crappy contract to hopefully build up clout and then negotiate? But even when you negotiate, maybe the rates still won't be what you want them to be. 20% of crap is still crap probably. So what are your thoughts there? Going back to what you said earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that you know what your minimum rate is that you can take and still provide the training that you want, provide the benefits that you want, pay whatever salary to yourself that you need to, so that you can successfully grow this company. Because the issue is that I'll get to that later, right? I'll fix the issues with accreditation later, or I'll fix the issues with credentialing later. I'll fix my policy handbook later. I just got to get to this and get it done. It never happens. And so I work with a lot of ABA providers where they've had the same rates for 10 years. And so if these were like, I don't know if I can accept these 10 years ago, they're going to be terrible right now. And so what happens with a lot of these companies that are accepting those less than ideal rates is that they are forced to grow quicker than they would like, because if I can get enough people in here, especially newer RBTs, I can get enough revenue that my profitability is it does enough to give me the salary that I need to continue, right? And
but can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
And in this situation, you don't have your policies and procedures, and you don't have things figured out for yourself yet.
No.
So how are you going to be able to communicate clearly to your staff what those expectations are, and then follow through and offer support if you don't even know yet what you have? Go back.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So like this is what happens to a lot of providers, or a lot of ABA providers, is that they go in, again, well-meaning. I just want to help as many kids as I want. We're seeing this right now, Texas Medicaid. Like these rates are just horrible, and people are accepting them because if I don't accept them, who else is going to accept them, right? And there's a lot of kids that need help, and I totally understand that. But if this rate, if you take enough of these, how many of these cases can you take? 20%, 30%? What happens if you lose one of your funders because they say, hey, we're closing our network and we don't need you anymore? This is a real thing that's happening to ABA providers right now. So now you lose this one that's great. It has a great rate. You've lost those. That's 25% of your revenue, and now all you have left are these lower rates.
Right.
Your business is going to close because you're losing money. Now all of these cases are gone, right? Like all of these employees, they've lost their jobs, they're going somewhere else. All of these kids have lost their services. So it's really important that at minimum you get that baseline. Okay, I need $55 an hour at 97153, or I need 65, or I need 75, because I want to be able to provide paid drive time. I want to be able to provide mileage reimbursement. I want to be able to give them 2 weeks of vacation or health insurance, let alone legal requirements of those things. I just want to be able to do those things. I want to be able to provide raises. These are important things that you have to consider. And so a lot of, like, if you go into it knowing full well, okay, I know what my low rate is, but I'm still going to accept this. Okay. But most providers are not doing that. They're just, I'm going to help as many kids as I can. And now to keep up, again, the other thing that they're doing is that they're doing the management with their first 40 hours, and then they're doing their clinical with the second 40 hours because they can't afford another BCBA because the rates are so low, right? And
so how do you know a good rate, though? And I think that's a question we get asked a lot of times. So they don't realize that they have a bad rate until like too long.
The math is a math.
The math isn't math.
Yeah. I mean, this is something that we are helping with. And a shout out to Margin Keepers, who has helped many companies do this, but they will actually sit down with you and they'll go over the cost of living in your area, the wages that you're going to be paying probably in your area. And then they will say, this is what you need at minimum, right? Based on TRICARE typically is publicly posted. Medicaid rates are typically publicly posted. So they will help you, and they're helping us help people do this, right? So this is something that you should absolutely go through, get an idea of how much is the clinic going to cost, right? Am I going to open up a clinic? Because if you're in a city, 4,000 square feet, that may be $10,000 a month, right? If you're in, somewhere else, maybe it's 2,000. So that's going to make a difference. Yeah. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll throw it back to you guys, 85 to 90% of your expenses are going to be wage related, right? I was talking to somebody in Maryland. They were doing something different. They want to open up an ABA clinic, and she was like, "Wow, wages is going to be really expensive." Yeah, it is. It's the vast majority of what you're going to be paying out is dependent on your wages, and so if you increase your RBT wage on average $1 an hour, and your rates are again just barely making it, that it's gone now, right? That profitability that you had is now gone, and now what do you do, right? And so it's just you have to go into it eyes wide open if you're going to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. So what's your recommendation then? Just let's say the rates that an insurance company is offering are lower than my rates that I'm willing to accept. Do I not take them at risk of not getting enough clients and then going out of business, or do I take them and go out of business because I can't afford it?
So my short answer is don't take them.
Yeah.
And and that's from a person who has a really hard time saying no to any family. But it's I feel my stance is I can make an argument for ethical, knowing that it's better for me not to take them and stand back and perhaps let someone else take. I get, depends on the situation. There might not be other people in the area, but we are not God, right? We cannot save everybody. We cannot take clients that we can't afford, because ethically, is that doing more damage? I don't know. Right there again, we make the best decision we can with what we have in that moment, and it's a hard one.
It's the whole airplane mask thing, right?
Yeah.
Put your own mask on before you put somebody else's on,
Sure.
right? And it's very similar to this. So, we work with a lot of companies that have gone that route, like I said, okay, I'm going to accept the $40 an hour 97153 rate, even though I know I can't afford it, or they realize they can't afford it, but they're still accepting it. And then we have worked with other companies that know their worth and say, look, I cannot provide ethical, quality, sustainable services unless I get this amount. And those are different companies. And so maybe they don't grow as fast. Maybe they do, because they are able to show effective quality care. And so people, they get more referrals than anybody else does because they're doing a good job, right? And they don't have to hire, maybe they can hire a bachelor's degree or a master's degree tech, where the other company has to hire somebody that has a GED. And I'm not knocking a GED, but those are different levels of education and experience, right? And they are going to have different outcomes. And if you're forcing all of your techs to have a crash course on like a 2-hour HIPAA, and then, oh yeah, they have their RBT, they can go into the home now, and I guess I'll see them next month. That's different than when you're providing 27% supervision or 15% supervision, right? Because you can afford to do that.
But I think that's the difference. That's that ethical piece that I was having trouble describing a few minutes ago. But it's like in real time, there's a real human with a company right now that she's in the situation where she's realizing that she took rates way too low. She's trying to hire, but she can't afford to hire. Like, she has hired, but she can't afford who she's got. And she's realizing she can't give them what she needs to give them. And she's like, is this okay? Is it okay if I really wanted to go into this training, giving my techs the correct training, or even the basic training, but I wanted to do more than basic. And now, I really don't know that I can train them before I send them out because the money is too low. Yikes. Like, the rates are too low. Plus, you don't always get paid quickly, especially in the beginning. And by the way, you have to pay people when they work. You can't not, because you're not getting paid by insurance, doesn't mean that you can't not pay your staff. Side note.
Important fact.
Anyways,
very important fact.
Yes, very, very important. So anyways, I guess that's why I kind of tend to make the case for you can't afford to accept low rates.
Sure.
You can make that decision. There's more opportunity if you make the decision of, no, I'm just not going to take this payer, and I'm going to really focus on offering or delivering really great service and really supporting my staff with what I have that I can't afford.
And I think if more people came at it from that standpoint of, look, I know my value, I know what my staff's value is, I know what amount of time that I'm going to have to do that's non-billable. This is my cost. And so if more people did that and didn't accept those less than ideal rates, those rates will probably increase, right? So I think that's something something to note on that.
That makes sense. Definitely on the macro scale. I think sometimes on the micro scale, it's like, man, if I got to make rent, I got to kind of accept. But again, like you're saying, that if you do that, eventually you're going to compromise something. You're going to compromise your ethics, or you're going to end up committing fraud to try to maintain both of them. It's leading down a dark really pathway. I think one thing that we did when we started was probably what you would not advise with some of them is, we'll take it and we'll figure it out later. And that's because we had the luxury of having other incomes and not having to have that be our only income in providing the direct services. And fortunately, the funder that provides 80% of our services is a very good rate. So we've been good. I'm just trying to put myself in someone else's shoes who maybe can't sustain that.
I remember talking about buckets. We had a lot of conversation about buckets and saying we're gonna accept all these buckets, especially because those two buckets aren't going to budge on their rate, and they're telling us that we need a year, 2 years of experience with them, which means, if we can get that experience and sustain it, we'll try it toward the future, but we're going to focus on these buckets here that allow us to be solvent and beyond. So I remember that conversation because it was tough. It's you're excited about getting a contract, you're getting into business. Yeah, I'll take it. Sure. We'll figure it out later. And then, what you're saying, you start losing and you start losing. And then before you know it, you've accumulated losses that make it, insolvent. But yeah, I remember having that conversation. It was so hard because we just want to get going. We want to start, well, we can make it work. And nope, we're going to have to deny those people until we can actually take the loss to provide the service to gain some experience towards some prospect of renegotiating with them next year. That's not exactly that long play. It's not prominent.
You might not be here next year,
right? And it's you're not thinking about that when you're starting up. So.
And I will say one thing about insurance companies that say, okay, give it to me, wait a year or wait 2 years or wait 3 years. When 3 years does roll around, no, we don't do that. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And so I just want to make sure anyone out there listening, like they're not going to call you up and say, hey guys, guess what? We're going to give you a 50% raise, right? Like, that's not how this works, right? I can remember working with one insurance company, and she said, okay, we can rate negotiate in 6 months. Let's do it. Right. And this was all through email. And then 6 months rolls around. I send her the letter. I say, okay, we're ready. Her first response, I don't do that. We don't do that. What are you talking about? So I had to forward her own email to her and say, what are you like? You just said we could do this. So that's where it starts, right?
Yeah.
Like this is where they're coming from. Their job is to decrease the amount of hours that you're doing, right? And decrease the amount of revenue that you're generating from them. So like that's their job. That is probably one of their highest jobs, highest priorities.
Yep.
That's just something to be aware of, that even when you get to that point, it's going to be difficult to get that raise, and you have to justify
that's good.
And
that's
I
good.
have just one more thing to say about it. I'm typically more the positive, sunny sunshine one of it, but when we talk about this, I tend to be more of the, I don't know, real.
I appreciate that, April.
So here's the thing, though, and this is my stance on people who are in the position of, should I open a business? Do I want to do this? It's not something to do. It's not something to start on a whim. And I think that through this conversation, if anything, you can see that it takes a lot of planning, and it takes a lot of research and education and understanding what it is that you're getting into.
Yep.
And, I'm not saying that everyone has to wait till they have saved up enough salary for a year or saved a certain amount before they start, but you should save something.
Not a bad idea.
Should have. You should have something, whether you have an investor or whether you go in together as a group like you guys have. You need something, because if you start out with the money that just your normal money in your bank account and don't have any extra, and you're going into this blind, then you are going to be in the situation where you feel like you have to take anything that comes by because you're like scrounging. You have to get something right now. But if you go into it with some thought, it doesn't mean you can't start a company. Maybe you just need to wait a year or 2 years. Maybe you need a plan of how you save or what you're going to do to get to that point. So I'm not saying like don't start a company, but just know what you're getting into and plan and have that finances, because then at that point, you can be a little bit choosy in the beginning who you take, and you can take. Doesn't mean you have to always say no to the lower ones, but it means that you can put you in the position where you can wait until you can afford it to take those lower rates.
And I'll just say, like, in my opinion, this isn't really much different than, I love working with, my wheelhouse is 2 to 8. But there's a whole bunch of clients that keep on reaching out. They're 12, they're 13. I haven't really worked with them before, anyone that age before, but I think I could do it, right? Like, I don't see it any different than that, right? Like, where you're okay, well, I got to do it now. I have no choice. I have to get some clients. I have to get my staff hours. So you're just doing it because what else are you going to do? I think, just like you said, like, you have to look at your audience. Who can I work with? Who can I not work with? Right? What rates will I accept? What rates that I absolutely cannot accept? Having that kind of line in the sand drawn before you start doing this is really important. At least having some of it, right? I think is really important.
That was going to be my last question, and you spoke to it, so I'll just kind of ask it again if there's anything else you'd like to say to it. But it's one thing that I found was very useful in the ABA, again, plug. I promise we're not sponsored or advertising ABA business leaders, but it honestly did get us to where we were.
Right.
And I think one of the things that it did was it can also show who's not ready to start a company, because I went through that first thing. I had no idea what CAQH was. I had never started a business before. It's like you get it all done in the end of the year and then it's taxes. It's like, oh, wait, who's taxes? Fortunately, one of our other investors is a CPA, so that's something that we never had to worry about.
Amazing.
Payroll, all of these things. Like, I think maybe I overestimate my abilities sometimes. A lot of times it's just like, let's do it now and we'll figure it out later. I'll be able to figure it out later. I'll be able to figure it out later. I think we've done some of that with our company, but the platform that you have really irons it out. And I'd really advocate for people. Sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow to go through this and be like, yeah, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can manage all of these things. I don't think the profit margins are going to be where I want them to be. And again, that's before taxes and everything like that. So I think a lot of times you tend to look at it, it's this idealistic world of these are the billing reimbursement rates and I can get 100% of that. Heck yeah, right now I'm only getting 50% of that. But there's so much there. And again, not advocating for anyone not to start their own business. I encourage everybody to be their own business owner. But I think, April, you said it, is the sometimes the end result is it becomes the thing that they ran away from, but now their name is on the door. And that's just even a greater way. At least when you're working for somebody, you can always blame it on them and be like, well, if I did it myself. But once you do it yourself, and then if you kind of sell out or you end up getting into a predicament, like you talked about, where now it's insolvent and you're having to compromise your ethical skills or your clinical skills or something like that.
That's hard.
A lot of this can be done on the front end. And that is what was so valuable from your business course, was to say, like, look, we got to get this stuff figured out. And maybe the answer is no. Maybe we're not ready. But it's better to realize that we're not ready than realize that 8 months down the line when we have payroll, we've got our name on the line, and now we've got people's livelihoods at stake.
You guys were our first investment. You were our first business investment. It was a good one.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, you were our first investment.
And it was like, okay, well, we've, I think it was like $2,500 or whatever. We've invested this, like, we're not going to just throw that away.
No, let's go. And we got CEUs. I needed them. So thank you. Right on time. Can you guys, I knew this would happen. We can talk to you guys for 8 hours. We're an hour and 15. I don't want to, cut us off, but maybe thinking about some wrap-up points. We've covered a lot of ground. Any closing remarks?
Any from you all? Any thoughts or things you wanted to?
Yes. My favorite thing to say is I want to give your listeners a challenge for this next month. Reach out to somebody in your community who is a BCBA, who is a business owner. You don't have to be a business owner to a business leader. I'm just used to saying that because that's our main audience. But even a BCBA, a tech, whomever you are in this field, reach out to someone else who works for another company. Reach out to someone else in your community and start a coffee group, or I don't know what, something, and focused around how you can help each other.
Hard to be competitors with 6-month waiting lists, right?
So weird.
So we'll cut that out. There's plenty of work out there. We got to help each other out.
Plenty of work.
Yeah, I think one thing that you said it, like, there's a lot going on here. Some of my favorite emails are from people that said, hey, Steven, I took the course. I'm not doing this. I reached out to my current company. They gave me a raise. That's a BCBA that's going to keep being a BCBA. And we need BCBAs, right? We need good BCBAs doing the work day in and day out. We don't need somebody that's kind of half business owner, not doing a very good job, hiring staff, and then, the company goes under, and now all of those clients lose services. We need that person to continue being a BCBA. So if you're on the fence, I would highly recommend, don't look at TRICARE rates and say, oh, look at all that money I could be making. Like, if you're...
Don't look at TRICARE rates.
Like 95% of your motivation to start an ABA practice is because you saw that you just realized that TRICARE pays a lot for Don't do it. That will not sustain.
Do look at their recoupment rates, though, because those are high. Go ahead.
They're really good, actually.
Look at the rate that you will have to pay an attorney to fight those recoupment audits, and then you start to come. So look, I think that we need really good BCBAs in this space, not being business owners. And if we don't get another customer, I'm okay with that. So I think it's really important that BCBAs do what they want to do. And if you're wanting to work with kids, you're wanting to train techs, probably business ownership is not what you want to be doing, right? Because a lot of your time is going to be dealing with insurance. It's going to be dealing with payroll. It's like, again, what you mentioned about payroll tax. I get that. I still get that to this day. I didn't realize I had quarterly payroll tax, and now I owe $20,000 and I don't have it, right? Like, who wants to be dealing with that stuff? So, if you just want to be a BCBA, then business ownership is not for you.
Yeah. Mr. Dan, any closing thoughts, sir?
Thank you all so much. This is our first pod swap. There's no other people we'd rather do it with. So we align so much, and we appreciate you all getting us to where we are today. Hopefully we'll obviously talk much between now and then, but hopefully in another year, we can do another pod swap, and we will have continued to flourish our practice. And you all three, Pi Squared, will be even more renowned in the macro ABA space, because you deserve it. The work you do is incredible. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time on a Sunday, no less. We know you guys are busy, so we really appreciate your time and all the knowledge that you're disseminating to BCBAs out there and to our listenership. So thank you so much. I'd like to do my quick synopsis here. I think what I'll do today is say, ask yourself why. If you can't answer, then change your process, and
always analyze responsibly.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Always analyze responsibly.
ABA on Tap is recorded live and unfiltered. We're done for today. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time.